The Six Paths of Pain, the notorious and divinely powerful leader of the Akatsuki, who are capable of taking on Bijou, Jinchuriki, and 1,000 men at once, according to the databook, though they follow Pain. So considering the potential rivalry and precarious relationship between Obito and Pain, what would happen if Pain were to betray the Akatsuki and battle them in a gauntlet-style fashion of each Akatsuki tier, similar to my Itachi and Kisame renditions respectively, which both will be linked. But let's first begin with a section of just how strong is the leader of the Akatsuki, in which figuring that out could first be done through revisiting a statement just mentioned where in the databook and answering why the Akatsuki members, despite being so strong, follow Pain, and it's actually due to his charisma and power that no one can deny, which, understanding this statement, it seems to apply two traits to Pain as to why the Akatsuki members follow him, the first being charisma and the second being his power, which gets another attribute applied to that being that which no one can deny, implying that no member of the Akatsuki could deny his power, which would also fit with multiple other remarks about Pain within the databook 3, calling him godly, immortal, unbeatable. It even states that Pain, quote, the invincible leader of the Akatsuki, even the notoriously strong members obey him, which again you'll notice it applies a similar attribute to both Pain and the members, calling them strong but Pain invincible in comparison to. This fits perfectly with more of Pain's impressive lore through the chapter 364 synopsis statement, which states just after Pain accepted the mission to hunt Naruto that, quote, next time the strongest man in the Akatsuki pursues Naruto, end quote, which references to Pain, although some fans seem to apply this to Itachi as he appears to Naruto in the following chapter, though Oxford Language's definition for pursuit, quote, is to follow someone in order to catch or attack them, end quote, which is why this clearly is discussing Pain, as Naruto's first question to Itachi is asking if he was there to capture him, and Itachi simply says, no, I just want to talk, whereas Pain is now actively hunting Naruto with the capture of the Ninetales in mind, which he actually states when capturing Naruto. Now, saying that Pain is stronger than every other Akatsuki member through him not only being able to be called the strongest but invincible and unbeatable in a book discussing all of their powers shouldn't really be inconsistent, seeing as the only other two contingents would really be Itachi and Obito, who both have ways to not only be excluded from this statement through Obito being the shadow leader and Itachi being a spy. If you would want to die on the hill of Pain being stronger than Itachi, then we do know that Itachi obeys Pain in Deidara's flashback, which shows Itachi kind of referring to Pain as, you know, their leader whose orders they must follow, which could just be interpreted as a reference to Pain's power being the reason that the members obey him, although this is simply one way to interpret it. Another way to argue for Pain shouldn't be off the table, and that's just simply saying that he is stronger than both Obito and Itachi physically, as they both demonstrate their higher ends of power through speed and hacks techniques, which Pain isn't foreign to. However, he has other things like the black belted blades, which are only broken and snapped by literal Sage Mode users in Jiraiya and Naruto in the manga, and Pain is also just capable of catching Jiraiya's strongest attack, being the Big Baller Sengon, and then holding it just prior to absorbing it. This would be a Jiraiya whose Sage Mode has entered into its second state, where it, you know, his face has changed to this, or I guess from this to this, where he gains multiple other more frog-like features, implying just overall more senjutsu being added to his base, which would obviously mean more power, as Fukasaku states when talking to Naruto, meaning Pain is certainly physically above a stronger Sage Mode Jiraiya than the one that Jiraiya implied placed him in a different tier of power than the Sannin. Pain could even take it a step further to demonstrate his superiority through him being able to also tank and a mentally amped Jiraiya's kick to the eyes whilst holding back, catching the same Jiraiya's Sage Mode punch from behind the back with his eyes closed, reacting to Jiraiya's fastest jutsu in Kabari Senbon, and even ripping Jiraiya's arm off. Pain then takes it a step further and battles Jiraiya's student, Naruto, who would go on to master Sage Mode to greater heights than Jiraiya ever would, where he would then be called even more powerful than his fallen sensei Jiraiya on the back of volume 45. where Pain would actually be able to bomb the entire Leaf Jonin, dominate, all of its shinobi through masterful crowd control and his skillful battle against Kakashi, the strongest Jonin according to 3 different medians, who Pain was certainly above in their encounter, seemingly outspeeding him with the Ashura Path, who can also just tank Kakashi's Raikiri to the spine, as that's actually the focal point of the, of the attack, though it's actually still in contact, which is just really impressive. I mean, Kakuzu could never. So, while completely drained through all of that, Pain, who then fights multiple Sage Mode Narutos, as he would actually continually recharge while Pain is getting more fatigued, Pain's power is still stated to exceed even Naruto's in Sage Mode, which would be shown through Pain moving relatively in clashes like with the Preta Path, the Diva Path, who could, put his arms up and react to the kick point blank. And if you consider the anime as reliable or secondary, then the Animal Path also has a full-blown taijutsu exchange with Sage Naruto in the air, which we just don't really see on screen in the manga. The Pains can also collectively react to the Rasen Shuriken, which is likely faster than Naruto, even though the Preta Path can fully intercept to save the Tendo Path, who's notably low on chakra and not at a full power through the entire fight, with the 10th Mini Chronicles guide potentially stating that the Diva Path used all of its chakra on the chaotic Shinra Tensei, showing how even if one path isn't all, even if one path isn't at full power, the others who aren't as affected and through the fatigue and whatnot can still display a level of coordination nearly unmatched that's said to leave nothing unguarded in the 3rd data book, and that kind of allows for them to pick up the slack of whatever path might be fatigued. Such a godlike coordination is all the more deadly when considering the different and unique abilities of each path, allowing for Pain to use things like several animal summons who can, ground, who can control like large parts of the, strongest shinobi village without all of them out. He has ones like the replicating dog, bird, panda, ox, crab, rhino, centipede, chameleon. I mean, you name it. The Ashura Path also just has the ability to like crowd control on a similar destructive level through things like his giant laser beam explosions from his head, quad missiles to be fired out of the arm, hand cannons, tracking missiles, giant bendable blades. I mean, Pain could then even couple those with his ability to virtually negate ninjutsu entirely through his broken ability to control magnetic and repulsive forces, and the Diva Path, his ability to absorb chakra and ninjutsu into literal bottomless pits through the Preta Path. I mean, Bro can just revive any path if they go down and even steal souls. Like, what? Coupling this with his ability to activate a sensory mode in the Renegon by dilating the pupils, which allows for him to better analyze and interpret the enemy's moves and even sense and visibly see through invisible ceiling barriers, which is also a realm that Pain is very impressive in due to his Uzumaki lineage and high level of ceilings, with him creating or knowing some of his own, like the 9 Phantom Dragon seal that's used to seal the Bijou. He also has all 5 nature releases and other less combat applicable jutsu, like his ability to split percentages of his opponent's chakra up. And I mean, yeah, Pain is just, he's physically a monster, a threat considered to be unbeatable and invincible 400 chapters deep into the series, him being above a Sage Mode fighter in Naruto, who's above both of Jiraiya's Sage Mode variants, with the weaker being a whole tier above his base stat that was chosen for the title of Hokage not once but twice, which is a title that requires the power to stand at not only the peak of Konoha but the strongest village and the entire world at large. This is likely why Shikaku, the smartest dude in the world, tells Shikamaru not to intervene. He'll only get in Naruto's way. This fits with other higher assertions for Pain, for him to be like potentially even above Obito and characters of that sort, but I suppose we can kind of just move into briefly explaining how the tier and gauntlet works. So essentially no member would really be able to stand toe-to-toe with Pain alone for most of the video, so like with my other renditions, Pain will run the tiers as in low tier, which consists of Konan, Kakuzu, and Hidan, then the middle tier, which is the artistic duo in Sasori and Deidara, then the high middle tier in Kisame and Orochimaru, and then Itachi and Obito, both individually. Pain will obviously enter each of the matches at full power in the Rain Village, as will the other members. However, Pain won't have to worry about protecting the village or, holding back in corridors, anything like that. He gets a full recharge at the end of each round, regardless of the outcome of the previous round. And yeah, that's basically it. Pretty simple. Also, if you are enjoying thus far, maybe you enjoy a little bit of Pain Glaze, then if so, I highly recommend you check out some of my more videos and, more of those videos on him, and let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys want more Pain focused content, and yeah, maybe hit that subscribe button too if you don't mind. But on to the low tier. Firstly, as for Konan and Hidan, Pain shouldn't really have much trouble in dealing with her through some of his more background paths while he focuses on the more formidable Kakuzu. Pain's lore assertions apply to most of the weakest of the members, seeing as there isn't really any way for them to contest Pain being stronger, which simply fits with his ability to casually handle Jiraiya, who is a threat that was not only able to counter her paper via his toad oil and subsequent blitz with the hair, but even considered to be potentially stronger than Kakashi, who seems to imply that Pain is stronger off the notion that he fought all 6 paths, which does actually happen in the manga to an unknown degree when he is weakened and able to parry them off and pull the animal path into his toad dimension, which the anime extends to him actually fending off their taijutsu like jump attack. Jiraiya was also chosen for the title of Hokage twice, where Kakashi was more of a second thought, and while things like experience do play a factor, I mean, it's a 700 mission difference, the sheer power is likely of a greater factor, which is supported, seeing as Naruto, who beat Kakuzu, is considered to be rivaling Kakashi, and the same Naruto following that spars base Jiraiya and was beaten up in the Storm Generation cutscene. Further grounding this to Pain should also just be easy, seeing as Pain could then parry off base Naruto's taijutsu whilst holding back and trying to capture him, and this being a whole 3 arcs after that point in which Kakashi, who Pain is even more demonstrably above, and hence Naruto, could fend off Kakuzu. The Ashura path is able to fully intercept Kakashi's Raikiri, as well as dodge it and tank it to the chest, and it went straight through Kakuzu's chest despite the Diamond Morph being active, and while some may point to the nature advantage, the Ashura path's spine, which tanked the attack, is literally metal on lightning. Bro, I mean, while he does get overpowered, Kakashi could also just react to all the taijutsu, react to Hidan, and parry him off, who could actually react similarly to Kakuzu in several instances. He can also react to Kakuzu's more potent fire style and counter with a water wall. He can react and cancel out the false darkness lightning style, being probably the most impressive heart if I'm saying so. And I mean, he also just tanked and likely reacted to the wind style heart, which only just destroyed his jacket. So now consider how much Pain actually beat up Kakashi, who was who was forced to use multiple Kamui compared to his restraint and using it against Kakuzu due to the lack of necessity, though he admitted he probably could have won if he needed it. Meaning that even for the strongest of this lower tier group being Kakuzu, the footing he comes to fight Pain at is awfully precarious, and Pain holds a severe advantage in sheer speed and strength. And considering just how strong the black belted blades are, Pain could also just blitz around and stab the hearts while simultaneously pressuring them, along with Konan and Hidan, who obviously won't be doing too much through things like the animal summons, who are able to block Jiraiya's fastest Sage Mode attack, with things like the Centipede and Rhino also just being extremely destructive and even more so annoying in other ones like the replicating dog, which leaves one of Kakuzu's hearts astray to deal with that, seeing as neither Hidan nor Konan have the capacity to. So yeah, their best bet is always just his high level ninjutsu, which Pain should have no trouble reacting to and hence absorbing through the Preta path, or just him potentially just repelling them in the Diva path. He also exhibits far greater durability as shown when tanking the large Akamichi fist ability, which can crush Kakuzu's hearts. And if for whatever reason you say that Hidan could possibly draw blood from Pain, I don't know why you'd say that, don't ever do that. Even if you were to say that, the corpses, their pain receptors are minute at best and likely should just counter the ritual unironically, which would be one of, if not the only win con for this group. So enough dabbling, enough yapping. We mentioned we haven't even mentioned the Ashura path plus Tendo combo and stuff like that. So yeah, Pain clears this bottom group 9 to 10 out of 10 times. Now, while initially establishing just how versatile Deidara and Sasori are in their ability to combo attack, it should first be noted how physically fast and strong they are. And while many might actually point to Sasori's lore of killing the third Kazekage, who was the strongest Kazekage ever, placing him even above Rasa, who battled War Art Gaara and consistently subdued Shikaku, which should be more applicable for both the third and Sasori, as he also has the Iron Sand, but with a coating of the most deadly poison in the franchise since to Waichio, even without that, calls it the most feared weapon in all of Sunegakure, and this certainly does imply that Sasori is quite formidable for, even having such a puppet, although his sheer scaling to and method of killing the third is fully unknown, and it very well could have been some surprise attack, as I've discussed this in detail before. But to reiterate, within the manga, all we really get told about this encounter would just be how Sasori notes the third was hard to finish, hence to why this puppet is his favorite, which is likely referring to the process of transforming the third into a puppet whilst keeping his ability of maintaining his chakra and his abilities to use the Iron Sand, the thing that made him so formidable, but furthering it to, via his poison to be added to the the Iron Sand. On the contrary though, the data book may actually give us more of an insight for his manner of death, which states that, quote, a difficult opponent defeated, then turned into a puppet is pure ego gold for Sasori. And what makes this interesting, as this would just be how it does claim the third was an opponent and was defeated, leaving us only two real options for interpretation. The first being A, Sasori was simply way stronger than him and the lore around him was either over-exaggerated through reputation or false, as we can get into Sasori's physical scaling in a second. Or B, Sasori managed to kill him in a rather disingenuous way, like snaring him with one of his puppets via killing him with poison, which would, he likely had prior to forming the Iron Sand puppet and whatnot, and maybe Sasori just caught him off guard with the poison and then fought him, leaving him severely weakened, where Sasori would just, he would have defeated him as an opponent, and his lore of being the strongest shinobi isn't just destroyed. Now, to expand on that last sentence and the earlier point I made, the third being reputed as the strongest shinobi is obviously very telling for his lore, seeing as Chiyo notes that he died over 10 years ago at the time of part 2, where Minato died 16 years ago, and assuming Chiyo is just going to the nearest fifth or is just spot on, this would allow for you to conclude that he might have had a reputation beyond Minato, from even his third war reputation, a younger Hiruzen, the Sani, Anbu Kakashi's reputations, all those respectively, which probably just isn't true. And if it is, the statement just is probably, if it's not true and it isn't just referring to Sune and its inhabitants, then it doesn't apply to Sasori, seeing as he was reacted to on multiple occasions, by Sakura and Chiyo, and he's actually shown equal to Chiyo and even Sakura, at some points, who could dodge multiple of his puppet attacks despite Sasori trying to hurt her, where he even screamed die at her much later. So any arguments of, well, Sasori was depressed and wasn't actually trying at all can simply be dismissed. At the very least, Sakura is capable of perceiving all of Sasori's attacks and movements, which is more than I could say for Hebi Sasuke, who utterly perception blitzed her, which would fit with how Hebi Sasuke is referred to someone whose speed takes away the breath of even the Akatsuki members, which is seemingly referring to the ones introduced to us by this point, who were all used for each Team 7 member to have an Akatsuki opponent, placing Hebi Sasuke above Sasori, Kakuzu, and Deidara, which is someone we can move into discussing. Now, yes, the fight was an extreme diff, but if you paid attention, Sasuke nearly blitzed Deidara in every combat speed related encounter, where Deidara only reacted due to the range and even blew a C1 bomb up in his face to when he kind of just then concluded he needed to snare him when, via tracking bombs, whilst having Tobi place landmines while he soars in the skies so Sasuke can't touch him. So yeah, Hebi Sasuke being far above Sasori and Deidara is totally a bad look for how they would stack up to Pain, who is considered invincible in comparison to all three, with him also being a character who would battle Sage and Naruto, whereas, Itachi, the other top dog in the Akatsuki, would be one, heavily comparable to 5 Kage Summit at his peak, hence to why Sasuke is stated to only have surpassed Itachi in EMS, and why Danzo makes several remarks of Itachi's superiority to Sasuke, which aligns with how Itachi and Pain both beat up Sannin mentors and their higher forms, but Pain had an authentic fight, whereas Itachi was perception blitzing Sasuke. So Pain might also just be able to do a similar thing, and if you interpret this cover art here as a portrayal of the Three Tails Naruto and CM2 Sasuke as relative, then it's cooked. And if it's not already, seeing as Pain could already, he could fight the Six Tails of Naruto, and if you are looking for a more in-depth explanation of Sasuke versus Pain in this form, then I basically have a whole video on that topic, which will be linked, meaning that Pain should just come into this fight on really solid footing, similar to the last one, where his abilities also might just hard counter those of Deidara. For example, as yes, Deidara is really, he's really impressive with his bombs and things like the C2 tracker bombs, the fish that bombed Isobu, the Three Tails, the squid that flipped Turtle Island, the C3 bombs, which are stated to be at the pinnacle of all explosions, and even the C4, which can actually erase you from a cellular level to the point where Deidara and Oniki were confident in clashing in those two abilities, which is, it's obviously insane. However, the paths may or may not be affected, as they do affect all creatures, including the lizards on the tree and the birds, but not all other living things like trees and greenery, so maybe the dead bodies might have a resistance to it, though this might be a bit downplay for the C4 if it were to come out. However, one thing he should be able to do is actually just repel away the nano explosives, as he can't see invisible barriers via the Renegon dilation, so maybe he could see those as well. However, I would actually doubt it at, I'd actually doubt if it like came out, seeing as Pain's fighting style, especially when considering anime fights like the Utakata fight, is literally just an 8-fest of jumping, alluding to like what a full power Pain actually trying to kill you would probably be like. And it kind of also is telling for how Sasori and Deidara would stack up against Pain. The puppet strings can be interacted with through things like blades, as shown through Omoi in the war, so attractive and repulsive forces are just going to screw up any sort of movement from the puppets, and it's not like the 100 puppets could do anything to Pain's paths, mainly in like the Ashura or Animal Path, destroying like the strongest country and combat location in the world. And and it's obviously just way greater than their reputation of destroying a country no matter what they did do. So Pain can also just keep pressure on all of the like through all of the summons and the Ashura path on Sasori himself during that, whilst like the human path, Preta, and Diva path, who are all Sage Jiraiya level individually, are going to be focused on Deidara. And something most people forget is Pain can fly and levitate, so Deidara flying isn't really going to help bro out, and Pain should just be able to like push and pull him off the bird and you repel basically any explosion, whilst also potentially even like absorbing the bomb's chakra. So yes, that's all that's left. If you like, Pain is just kind of, he can then just stab both Deidara and Sasori in the chest and drop them dead, meaning that I give Pain the win here 8 out of 10 times. Following up with Kisame and Orochimaru is a certainly more notable match in giving a challenge to Pain, seeing as both lie on the Sannin tier, with Orochimaru conceding that a 3-Tomoe Itachi is stronger than him, and Kisame can combat him in the games until the MS comes out, which fits with the manga in their first encounter as well, which shows Kisame yielding upon seeing the MS, sort of implying the two are at the same level, which is really telling. I mean, Orochimaru can fight off like old man heroes into like what's called an evenly matched fight, with his taijutsu being stated equals as well. It was also just like a Hokage level battle, which is what's reputed to stand at the peak of the shinobi world 3 times in the fan book. And Kisame obviously is also just able to battle 7th gate Guy on solid footing, with their reaction patterns being equal, despite the 7th gate pushing the water away from Guy, allowing for him to move in a less dense medium than Kisame, showing just how impressive Kisame can really be. And coupled with his his performance against Killer B in his version 2 state, where Kisame can react via pulling his foot up instead of outright getting blitzed, it still just might not even really compare to Pain when you consider not only his lore with Itachi, but his scaling to the Six Tails form of Naruto, who's got a much stronger Bijou, where Pain can not only like react evenly, but superior in like the manga, where Pain just like outruns him and uses Chibaku Tensei and whatnot, whereas like in the anime, bro is doing a backflip slide into prone positions to dodge projectiles, even tanks like massive rocks being slammed on him, which doesn't really contradict anything from the manga, which shows Tendo tanking a point blank concentrated Six Tails Bijou bomb, which is the pinnacle of the V2 attacks and would likely be above anything B's V2 could accomplish, showing how Pain is falling through on the narrative of him being the strongest man in the Akatsuki. I mean, Orochimaru might, he might just be like the strongest on this list so far, and is stated to be on par with like base Jiraiya, and Pain beat up a second state Sage Jiraiya. Kisame's arsenal is also just it's kind of a really unfortunate case against Pain, seeing as he absorbs jutsu, which Pain can do better, and then he uses large-scale jutsu in water style, which Pain can absorb. Orochimaru has a good stylistic matchup against basically everybody, seeing as he has the ability to use body replacement to recover from arms being ripped off or blasted off, and the miniature snakes to reconnect severed organs and guts, which really does help, although it doesn't help with his ability to put down any of the paths. He does have an extremely wide variety of jutsu, with the 10-year anniversary guy stating that all of Konoha's jutsu might actually just be like known to the evil one, or Orochimaru, and this just is probably consistent with how he actually implies his sealing jutsu is amongst the highest level. However, like Kisame, large-scale jutsu and stuff like that, like maybe his wind style that say to like create hurricanes or whatever, are kind of futile. Now I will say things like the shark bomb are actually really versatile, and he has a version that can like overpower base Guy for him to then swim inside of, as well as the large-scale one that could absorb attacks, meaning potential Ashura path jutsu could be absorbed, as well as any of his typical nature releases, seen as like he could potentially use the Gale Palm out of his chakra and mind, which are connected to the paths, but bro doesn't really do that in character, meaning Kisame and Orochimaru sit at a pretty fat disadvantage, and there isn't really anything they could do to actually put Pain down, where he has several options like large-scale Shinra Tensei and stabbings with the black belted blades. Lastly, I would concede that a war of attrition could play out, though it might not really matter as Pain's reserves are ridiculous, taking on the whole village, yada yada yada, we get it. No matter what, it still comes down to Pain having a much better stance in both speed and strength with multiple ways to kill them, and none for the contrary, meaning Pain wins like 7 out of 10 times. Moving on to both Itachi and then Obito versus Pain, I want to say that Pain versus Itachi is a really heated discussion, and I've talked about it many times. I've voiced several opinions on just how strong I think Itachi is, and if you watch me, you know those opinions, and I don't really want to just repeat the same thing. So by all means, check out my Akatsuki playlist where you guys can learn a lot more, like my Itachi solo video where I conclude a lot of things, or my Itachi versus Pain video. But yeah, well, I do think they are very comparable. I think Pain probably loses to both of them. However, for Obito, the case is much less clear and their rivalry is much less known, and many people just point to Obito calling Pain his underling as a justification for why Obito is above Pain, when this simply doesn't work, or at least as well as it's been alluded to in the community, seeing as Obito only makes this claim after Pain is dead, and Zetsu can't even fathom why Obito would plan on Pain losing, lending credibility to Obito trying to scare Sasuke into invading the summit as he planned, with him seemingly treating himself as greater than the man who just destroyed the entire Leaf Village, still abusing the name of Madara, which is power itself. Now, this is consistent with how Pain does actually scare Obito in one of their encounters, and when there's kind of also a display of clear distrust when Obito enters the Rain Village on a Sunday, which is a day that never rains, though Pain forces it to utterly thunderstorm via his Rainmaker Jutsu to sense each drop of rain, and his Kamui timers and how the drops would actually just pass through Obito's body, allowing for him to know the timers, and Obito seems to actually be aware of this as he shows Pain his Sharingan in response. The Rainmaker method would probably be how Konan knew of the timers, rather than she kind of watched him for a really long time approach, and this would likely just align with how Pain, like Itachi, would be a threat that Obito isn't really willing to test following the Minato fight, as he was extremely cautious after that fight, with him now focusing on only his goal, which might actually allude to why he didn't fight Naruto when he pulled up to the snow cabin, because Obito knew that Naruto beat Pain, placing him seemingly in that tier as well. All in all, I think Minato's declaration of Pain being inferior to the masked man who's truly behind everything and he's a threat that Naruto needs to master the 9 tails to beat is a much better route to assert Obito over Pain. And while he is and should be able to win through the fight through Kamui, there should still be more of a discussion on their rivalry, and I've only really touched the surface here, so let me know if you guys would be interested in a Pain versus Obito discussion. But yeah, Obito wins, and that's all I've got. If you guys did enjoy the video, then please, I work very hard to get these videos out for you guys, so if you guys have enjoyed this one, or if you learned something, then hit that subscribe if you haven't already, and may God bless you all. Love you guys.